Hola, les saluda Alejandro Alday desde el Instituto Matías Romero para hacer una grabación especial y muy importante sobre un programa de colaboración que tenemos con la Universidad de Arizona. This time we will speak with Marc Miller, the Dean at the University of Arizona School of Law, about the importance of training for Mexican diplomats in the areas of U.S. immigration law, U.S. Criminal law. It is one of the issues more important for the consular services that Mexico is providing in the U.S. soil. The Instituto Matías Romero and James E. Rogers College of Law of the University of Arizona have an agreement now in force. This partnership has been strategic for training for diplomats of the Mexican Ministry of Foreign Affairs. Dean, thank you very much for being with us today here in Mexico City in the premises of the Instituto Matías Romero.
Of course, it's my pleasure. It's always a delight to be with you here and in Mexico City and in the Instituto, which is such a beautiful facility.
Thank you very much. And let me start asking you, what is the important for the University of Arizona in having a special initiative for training foreign diplomats, and if you can explain how this initiative began?
So it is a great honor for our college and the University of Arizona to be able to work with diplomats and diplomatic staff around these issues. There's a long answer to that question, but the short answer is that the relationship between the University of Arizona and Mexico broadly is deep and historic. It starts with the rather obvious historic point that the university sits on land that was once part of Mexico, but of course it goes deeply into culture and economic connections and political connections. The particular training opportunity came about through the work of the then consul in the consulate in Tucson, Ricardo Pineda, who worked with leaders at SRE and here with the request that the University of Arizona consider developing training materials for diplomats and diplomatic staff in these fundamental areas. You mentioned criminal law and immigration law, where citizens of Mexico and the US often have questions and sometimes challenges. But we also have a component on the fundamentals of the US legal system, the basic structure of state, local, and federal law, the different kinds of laws that work in these areas. Unlike our training of traditional Juris Doctorate students, unlike the training of traditional US lawyers, of course, here we're training both lawyers and non-lawyers, but for a very particular purpose, which is to help the Mexican diplomats and the staff provide more effective advice to citizens of Mexico. It is worth mentioning, and of course your colleagues know this well, but the Mexican delegation, the Foreign Services delegation in the US is the single largest delegation from any one country to any other country. And so the importance and the size and the complexity of this relationship cannot be overstated.
That's part of the importance that the Mexican government is granting to the consular services in the U.S. And by training our diplomats, it's one of the basic actions that we can take to provide good services for the community. What is the profile of the students that you normally receive for this program? And if you can tell us about the other parts of the pieces of the U.S. legislation that they will receive, like civil law, for instance.
So we have now had 4 cohorts of students. The single largest group is from the protection divisions within the consulates, but we have had participants ranging up to and including consuls general, deputies, legal representatives from the legal affairs offices. So it's a very broad representation. These are areas, in particular immigration and criminal law, that have not been stable either in law or policy over the time period we've done this. And this is not simply a point about a change in both U.S. Leadership and administration and in Mexico, of course. But there have been battles in U.S. court cases. There have been fundamental changes in policy with regard to how Mexican citizens in particular, but citizens of other countries in general, have been treated. Asylum laws have changed and been challenged. So this is far from providing a fixed curriculum. This is not pulling a book off the shelf and just sharing information. It's actually a dynamic conversation between our faculty and the participants. And one of the things I must say is we could not be more impressed with the quality of the members of the Mexican Foreign Service we've had the chance to work with. Their questions are extraordinary more than once. In fact, frequently, I have a faculty colleague come down the hall saying, I was just asked the toughest question by a member of this cohort, and it was a great conversation that followed. We couldn't be more impressed.
Could you elaborate a little bit more of your experience as a Dean of the Faculty of Law at the University of Arizona, of training diplomats, in particular Mexican diplomats, for the reasons that we just mentioned? There's a huge community of Mexican nationals in the US. So this is particularly important for us. But how about for the University of Arizona, your experience with them?
Yeah, the experience, we're sensitive to and aware of the scale and importance of the relationship. If we can provide training that helps Mexican diplomats provide services to Mexican citizens, we view this as a gift. When we taught the first cohort, one of the participants was the Consul General for Mexico in the New York office, an experienced diplomat. And I was in New York City and asked to meet with him, and he granted me that request. And I was brought in to the office and put in a conference room, and he came in, again, a distinguished diplomat. He came in visibly nervous. And I thought, why would this extraordinary diplomat be nervous meeting a dean? And then I thought, why does the school principal cross the whole country to have a meeting? And I think he was perhaps worried that I might say that for a man of your stature, your performance on the last quiz was not what we expected. And of course, that's not why I crossed the country at all. It was to get input on, are we being effective? Are we delivering information about laws? Are we responding to questions in an effective fashion? What other subjects should we address? And we proceeded to have a wonderful and warm conversation for an hour about the program and its goals. We've had conversations like that many times. We do surveys with each cohort to get detailed feedback. Our faculty are available to talk both with individuals. We often in the classes are responding to hypotheticals or questions posed by the participants. So again, this is not our abstract sense of what issues are of most importance to Mexican diplomats serving in the consulates or to Mexican citizens. It is a reflection of the actual questions that these professionals hear and then come and in this setting can explore what are the legal boundaries, what things are being changed, what might be changed, and get advice. And so it's a very rich conversation.
Yeah, in your experience, it is different to train people who is actually on the ground working with the real challenges than the normal students that are on the theoretical basis.
It is, and what's wonderful about the diplomats and staff we've trained is it's both theoretical and real and on the ground. Yeah. As I said, they're extraordinarily sophisticated and ask interesting and often profound questions about the larger legal frameworks or the comparison of Mexican and US law. And yet, their grounding is in how do we deliver services to Mexican citizens coming to the 50 consulates across the US. And so it's both. It's not in lieu of, but it is informed by the very real expertise and experiences Again, the many participants in the Consular Protection Division come with very specific, I mean, they're framed as hypotheticals, but they're framed around the actual questions of citizens and cases that have been raised. And we do our best. Again, we're not providing legal advice, but our best to provide training that will then assist the diplomats in their work.
Okay, that's very, very useful for us to know. Next year we will offer the same program for Mexican diplomats. As you have listened to the Dean Miller, it's not only for lawyers, and everyone can join the program in every part of the U.S. as well. So it is a very important program. Dean, this new office of the University of Arizona in Washington, D.C., could you tell us about it?
I will. It's called the University of Arizona Center for Outreach and Collaboration, and it's a large space. And the University of Arizona is a major research institution, right? 50,000 students, and we do about $750 million a year in funded research across a wide range of subjects. Much of that research is funded by the U.S. federal government. So having a presence in Washington is very important, but we also do work on policy. We have critical partnerships, like the partnership with the Foreign Service and the Instituto Matías Romero. And that office opened. It actually opened last spring, but this fall, in light of COVID, was the first time when we could safely gather for 1 week of events where the university chose a handful, and only a handful, of partnerships and projects that it thought embodied the strength of the University of Arizona, but also the strength of its partnerships. And our partnership together, Training Diplomats, was one of the handful of projects where officials, including representatives of other countries from throughout Washington, D.C., were invited to an in-person session. It was recorded and shared. An hour and a half of discussion with students, teachers. Ambassador Moctezuma came and gave a warm framing of why this training program had contributed and could continue to contribute to providing services to Mexican citizens. It was Consul Rafael Blashalov, who was the current consul in Tucson, came and spoke as well. But from the university standpoint, it was a celebration of how different and how special we believe this opportunity to work with Mexican diplomats is.
Okay. Well, congratulations for the new center in Washington, D.C., and thank you for the collaboration with the Ministry of Foreign Affairs. We believe in Mexico in the partnership with the different U.S. actors. Our relationship is very important, and thank you very much for being here in Mexico City.
Alejandro, my pleasure. Thank you.
Thank you.
Gobierno de México.